Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the series 12 Brain Rules by John Medina. In the previous session, we explored rule number 2, the human brain evolved. We learned how survival pressures shaped the structure of our brain over millions of years. But if evolution created the common framework for all humans, then what creates the differences between you and me? To answer that question, today we move on to rule number 3. Every brain is wired differently. We will see that the wiring process of the brain is not fixed. It changes every second of our lives. There is an important truth. Everything we do, everything we learn, physically changes the structure of our brain. This means that each person's brain is not just slightly different, it is truly a unique universe, shaped by the life that person has lived. Before we begin the story, here is a question. If the brain is flexible and constantly adapting to learn, why can becoming a master at one skill actually make it harder to quickly adapt to a new but similar skill? Let's start with a surprising story. It is about one of the greatest athletes of all time and an unexpected failure. Why would someone at the peak of physical coordination, strength, and competitive spirit suddenly look so awkward when switching from a basketball court to a baseball field? The contrast was dramatic. On the basketball court, he was a legend. But on the baseball field, the numbers don't lie. A batting average of .22, alarmingly low in professional sports. He also led the league in errors. This was not a minor decline in performance. It was a complete failure. The problem was not his muscles. It was the neural highways in his brain. Millions of hours of practice had built highly efficient superhighways designed specifically for basketball. But when he stepped onto the baseball field, those highways suddenly became dead ends. So now you have the answer to the question. If the brain is flexible and constantly adapting to learn, why can becoming a master at one skill actually make it harder to quickly adapt to a new but similar skill? The answer is this. Mastery means the brain has built strong, stable neural highways. This allows for extremely fast processing. But that very stability makes it difficult for the brain to change direction toward a new skill. So how are these neural highways built? To understand this, we must leave the sports field behind and take a journey into the microscopic world inside the brain.
Welcome to Part 2, a journey into the brain, exploring the microscopic science. Here's a question. If each neuron is a separate entity, how do they coordinate to create unified thoughts and emotions in such a complex system? Let's imagine something simple. Picture a fried egg. The yolk is the nucleus, containing all the genetic blueprints. The white is everything else. Now imagine stepping on that egg.
The shape created is very familiar. A jumbled shape like a star.
That is a neuron. A neuron has a central body, branches reaching outward to listen, and a long tail to transmit signals. Billions of these neurons generate every thought, feeling, and action we experience. But the real magic happens in the tiny gap between neurons, called a synapse. Let's zoom in. This world is incredibly active. Imagine a tiny canyon. An electrical signal shoots down at incredible speed, releasing chemical messengers. These messengers cross the canyon to deliver their message to the next neuron. This electrochemical dance happens trillions of times per second inside your head. So, if each neuron is a separate entity, how do they coordinate to create unified thoughts and emotions in such a complex system? The answer lies in synapses. Even though they're gaps, they are where communication happens. They transform isolated cells into a coordinated network. And this intense communication is not random. It leads us to a core principle. Who is designing this network? Part 3. Experience, the chief architect of the brain. Experience does not simply pass through us, it actively builds and rebuilds our brain every single day. So here is another question. Is learning just absorbing information from the outside, or is it actually an infrastructure renovation project inside your body? This idea is not new. As early as the 18th century, scientists observed that trained birds had more complex brains. In the 19th century, similar findings appeared in wild animals. But in 2000, a major breakthrough occurred. Eric Kendall demonstrated that when we learn, the physical structure of the brain changes, a discovery worthy of the Nobel Prize. This is what we need to remember. Learning isn't some abstract, intangible thing. It's a real, ongoing transformation project happening right in your head. And speaking of groundbreaking discoveries, in the early 2000s, a group of scientists made a discovery that, according to them, sent the entire lab into a frenzy. So what did they find? The scientists discovered a single neuron that only lights up when a patient sees an image of actress Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston and no one else. This is a prime example of what's called an experience-dependent system. Clearly, we weren't born with neurons specifically for Jennifer Aniston, right? Life, the movies we've watched, the articles we've read, all of these things train a group of brain cells to connect and represent the concept of Jennifer Aniston. Based on that, you now have the answer to the question. Is learning just absorbing information from the outside, or is it actually an infrastructure renovation project inside your body? The answer is, learning is a real construction project. Experiences from the outside world directly change the physical form of brain cells to store and represent new concepts. But if experience is the architect, then this leads to an inevitable conclusion about each of our individual identities. No two brains can be exactly alike because no two lives are exactly alike. And I have a question. Why do even people with the same genetic code and living in the same environment react differently? Think of it like a road system. We all share the same federal highways, the main structure, but the village lanes, the paths that make up each person's identity, are unique. Even when identical twins watch the same movie, their brains connect differently because their pre-existing life experiences differ. This uniqueness shapes our talents. One is a musical genius, the other possesses the kinesthetic intelligence of a dancer. Each type reflects a distinct neural connection. Why do even people with the same genetic code and living in the same environment react differently? The answer is, small differences in the past, like one person having read a movie review while the other hasn't, are enough to create completely different neural maps when encountering a new experience. But is this just theory? Is there concrete physical evidence that information is stored differently in each person? Yes, and it comes from the research of neurosurgeon George Ogeman, based on the analysis of not just one or two, but 117 human brains. And his conclusions are truly shocking. He confirmed that no two brains store information in the same location. Even the most basic things like language, where nouns and verbs are stored in each person's brain, we all have a unique address. No two maps are exactly alike. So knowing all this, what should we do? It forces us to ask a big question about all systems designed as one-size-fits-all, especially in education. And I have a question. If science has proven the absolute difference in the location of information storage in the brain, is the current standardized education system going against the laws of nature? When we understand that each brain is a unique journey, the idea of forcing all children of the same age to learn the same thing in the same way and at the same time becomes absurd. It's not only ineffective, but it completely contradicts how the brain was designed. Based on that, you now have the answer to the question. If science has proven the absolute difference in the location of information storage in the brain, is the current standardized education system going against the laws of nature? The answer is yes, the one-size-fits-all system is unnatural because it tries to give everyone the same roadmap and expect them to arrive at the same point, while each brain is a unique map.
If the brain is flexible and constantly adapting to learn, why can becoming a master at one skill actually make it harder to quickly adapt to a new but similar skill?
If each neuron is a separate entity, how do they coordinate to create unified thoughts and emotions in such a complex system? Is learning just absorbing information from the outside, or is it actually an infrastructure renovation project inside your body? Why do even people with the same genetic code and living in the same environment react differently? If science has proven the absolute difference in the location of information storage in the brain, is the current standardized education system going against the laws of nature? So, we've covered rule number 3. Remember these 3 key takeaways from today's lesson. First, learning changes the physical structure of your brain. Second, brain regions develop at different rates in each person. Third, no two brains store the same information in the same place. Respect your own differences and those of the people around you. You are a unique individual, not only in your personality, but also in the way the billions of neurons in your brain are connected. Next time, we'll explore attention. Rule number 4, we don't pay attention to boring things. And now, goodbye and see you again.